Look, I want to talk about something that almost nobody warns you about. You save your first $10,000, and instead of feeling proud or relieved, you feel strange. Not bad exactly, just off. Things don't feel the same anymore. Money doesn't feel exciting. Progress doesn't feel rewarding. And the motivation you thought you'd gain somehow feels weaker, not stronger. This catches people completely off guard because $10,000 is supposed to be a milestone. It's the number everyone talks about. The proof that you're doing well. The point where you're no longer irresponsible with money. So when you reach it and nothing clicks emotionally, it feels confusing, almost disappointing. And most people assume that reaction means something is wrong with them. My name is Alex, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, psychology, and why progress so often feels emptier the further you go. If you've ever saved money and felt less satisfied than you expected, make sure to subscribe and like this video, because today we're breaking down why nothing feels the same after $10,000, and why that feeling is actually a signal, not a failure. Here's the first thing most people don't realize. The emotional reward of saving money peaks early. At the beginning, every dollar feels like progress. Every small win gives you a rush. You're climbing out of a hole, and you can feel the distance between where you were and where you are now. But once you hit 10,000, that contrast fades. The climb feels flatter. Progress becomes harder to feel even if it's still happening. Psychologically, this makes perfect sense. Human motivation runs on visible change, not absolute numbers. Going from 0 to 1,000 feels dramatic. Going from 1,000 to 5,000 feels meaningful. But going from 10,000 to 11,000 barely registers emotionally. Your brain doesn't reward you the same way, even though the effort is often greater. This is where people start to get stuck. They assume money should keep feeling the same as it grows. They expect the same excitement, the same sense of momentum, the same emotional payoff. But money doesn't scale emotionally the way effort does. And once that mismatch appears, motivation quietly starts to erode. There's another layer to this that's even more important. At $10,000, money stops feeling like opportunity and starts feeling like responsibility. Before this point, saving feels like escape. After it, saving feels like something you have to protect. You're no longer just building, you're guarding. And guarding something valuable creates a completely different emotional experience. You start thinking about what could go wrong. Unexpected expenses, job uncertainty, emergencies. You don't feel free, you feel cautious. And that caution drains excitement out of progress. The money hasn't changed, but your relationship with it has. This is also where fear quietly replaces hope. Not fear in a dramatic way, but in a subtle one. You stop dreaming about what money could unlock and start worrying about how easily it could disappear. And when progress feels fragile, it stops feeling rewarding. Here's what most people miss. Nothing feels the same after $10,000 because money is no longer abstract. It becomes real. It becomes tied to your identity, your safety, and your future. And once money becomes real, it stops being fun. At this stage, your life structure hasn't changed. Your rent is the same. Your obligations are the same. Your routine is the same. So even though your bank balance improved, your lived experience did not. And the brain cares far more about lived experience than numbers on a screen. This is why people say things like, I saved money, but my stress didn't go away. Of course it didn't. Stress doesn't disappear when a number changes. It disappears when your margin changes. And $10,000 usually isn't enough margin to change how you live, only how you think. There's also a dangerous expectation trap here. Many people subconsciously believe that saving money should fix motivation, that once they reach a certain number, discipline will become easier. But motivation doesn't come from having money. It comes from feeling progress. And when progress becomes harder to feel, discipline actually gets harder, not easier. This is where the plateau happens. People keep doing the same things that worked before, expecting the same emotional return. They save, they budget, they track, but it all feels heavier. Not because saving stopped working, but because the reward system changed. And here's the part nobody talks about. This emotional flatness isn't a problem to solve. It's a phase to understand. It's the moment where money stops being about proving you're responsible and starts becoming about designing a life that actually feels different. Up until now, saving was about behavior. From this point on, money becomes about structure. And structure doesn't create instant emotional highs, it creates slow, delayed relief, which is much harder to feel in the moment. This is also why comparison becomes so toxic at this stage. You look at other people with similar savings and assume they feel confident or secure, but you don't see their obligations. You don't see their safety net. You don't see their risk tolerance. Money without context always lies, and at this stage, that lie feels especially heavy. Here's the quiet truth. Nothing feels the same after $10,000 because you cross the line where money stops being about survival and starts being about strategy. And strategy is mentally demanding. It forces you to think long term. It removes quick wins. And it exposes how little most people were taught about what comes next. $10,000 doesn't change your life. It changes your awareness. It shows you that saving alone won't buy freedom. It shows you that effort alone has limits. And it shows you that money starts working very differently once you're no longer broke. If you're feeling underwhelmed right now, that's not a sign you failed. It's a sign you're paying attention. You reach the point where a motivation based on novelty stops working. And from here on, progress comes from leverage, structure, and patience, not excitement. Most people quit here. Not because they can't save, but because saving stops feeling rewarding. They go back to comfort spending. They loosen discipline. They assume the system is broken. But the people who move forward are the ones who understand that this emotional shift is expected. Nothing feels the same after $10,000 because it's not supposed to. That milestone exists to close one chapter, not open the next. It's the end of learning how to save, and the beginning of learning how money actually creates control. That's what we'll talk about next. How money moves from being a fragile buffer to something that gives you real leverage. Why structure matters more than motivation. And why the people who seem calm with money aren't smarter. They just stopped expecting money to feel exciting. If this video helped you understand why progress suddenly felt empty, make sure to like and subscribe, because once you understand why nothing feels the same after $10,000, you're finally ready to understand what actually changes after it.